Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Shahana Mukherjee, founder and president of Unveiled, Bridging the Gap to Sponsorship. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to enabling access through bold conversations, tangible action, and a community committed to transforming systems. By reimagining access, opportunity, and sponsorship, we are building a world where access to opportunities isn't reserved for a lucky few. Our fireside chats are safe, bold spaces where we have candid conversations with change makers who are challenging the status quo, leading with purpose, and showing us what's possible. As you listen, we invite you to join the movement by engaging with us. Visit our website, unveiledbridgingthegap.org, to learn more about our work and get involved, donate, or become a member. A special thank you to everyone who chose to donate through this event. You are a part of someone's breakthrough story. With that, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today for the topic of impact beyond the org chart. Lisa is a powerhouse in tech leadership with over 20 years of experience driving massive engineering systems at Oracle and Microsoft. Currently leading Oracle's cloud user experience, she previously steered the backend commerce and subscription engines that power the Azure and Oracle cloud businesses. A graduate of Harvard's Executive Women's Leadership Program, Lisa's impact extends far beyond the screen. She serves on the American Heart Association's Seattle Advisory Board and is a dedicated sponsor and mentor for the next generation of engineering talent. Bertrand is a global strategist with nearly 2 decades of experience transforming talent and culture into a competitive business advantage. Currently the Vice President and Global Head of People for R&D, Growth Segments and Inclusion at Kenvue, and previously a key leader at Johnson & Johnson, he has spent his career decoding how complex multinational organizations build high-performing teams. Having lived and worked across the globe, Bertrand brings a unique experience and perspective on bridging the gap between corporate human capital strategy and the deeply human work of community mentorship. With that, so I will start off with questions to both of you, Lisa and Bertrand. Thinking about leadership beyond the job title. For professionals who feel stuck in their current role, how can they use community involvement to build a brand that reaches beyond their immediate manager?
So I feel like, and feeling stuck, I would say, Sana, in the way you describe it, is somewhat missing opportunities to connect with different people. And I feel like what opportunities in the community could provide is really a different level of exposure to people who may not be working in the same organization, and really nurturing that exposure into an extended network that you give you two things: A, different point of views and really challenge your curiosity, and second, a network that is different from the one you have. I really take high pride connecting and meeting people who will technically will have maybe never met without an engagement within a community project or something that is serves a purpose beyond the day-to-day job. And the last comment I would have is that we are all very busy and you feel like you don't have the time, but that's maybe the most natural way to expand your network today if you're willing to invest a little bit of time.
I want to double click into what Bertrand said on our existing network and then the network that you haven't reached yet. And if you're feeling stuck, this has happened multiple times in my career. For whatever reason, you're in a situation where you're just not feeling very energized and you feel like you have more to offer or you want to do something different. And you're stuck within the existing systems and structures that surround you. I agree with Bertrand. It's about finding intentional ways to work beyond the existing network that keeps you stuck. So you know, in your day-to-day job, you interact with a variety of people that is tied to what you do. And yes, Bertrand's absolutely 100%. We're all super busy, but you have to make concerted effort to create capacity, because in order for you to unstick yourself, you're going to have to do more of something to not repeat the same patterns of being stuck. So whether that's practicing the same network of constraints that you have, or potentially moving beyond that. And you know, I've done that at a variety of different times in my career, and you've got to find some capacity to do more for a short burn period of time, and maybe take on a different project, a volunteer item, so you can expand a network beyond what you're consistently working in. And there's always more work than people wherever you go. And so if you have that really good sponsor that exists in a different part of the organization, and you want to do some type of extracurricular or volunteering activity or something, that way you make intentional investment to interact with different people. That allows you opportunities to maybe act on something new and different that could open up new doors. So I was in a job once that I was so not energized about, and I took on a huge volunteering project in that job, and I worked my way out of that job through that volunteering project, because I started working with another leader and got close with that leader, and kind of shared, like, I'm looking for a new role, and those are the things. I agree, Bertrand, with what you said, working beyond your existing network for sure.
And one thing I will add as well to what Lisa said is the new skills that you are building through that new project, for example, right? Most likely those are skills that you may not develop within your current job, and it really does give you the opportunity to expand their skills and then to own the story. How do you tell, without really shouting it, but how do you tell strategically what you are doing and what you are learning through the platform? Because one thing to get that diversity of thinking and that different exposure is another thing to really take ownership of the storytelling and what you're getting out of it as well, just to make sure that people can see you through the lens and they can see that Alex, Shanti, Jamie, Origa, or folks on the line here are really the owners of their story and are developing new skills that may position them differently when they are competing for another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And both your examples, it really resonates. And like for me, like Unveiled has been such a great example of that, like creating a nonprofit from scratch. Everything I've done with Unveiled, I have learned, I have to learn how to do it. But you know, the community around it has been by far, it has gotten me through very tough times, and meeting people like Lisa, like who I didn't have an organic overlap in my network with. Those are really great examples. So Bertrand, this one's for you. You have mentioned that growing in a Fortune 500 company requires decoding things that aren't given to you. What is one unspoken rule of leadership that professionals often miss when they only focus on their job title?
Yeah, I wish everybody, when you join part of your onboarding, there will be a guidebook, a manual, how to navigate a corporations, because it wouldn't be one operating manual for every companies, because there's a culture that is unique to each of those organizations. But what they may have in common is the ability really for you to find within the organization the connectors. What are the people that you should know that will be almost a bridge to another 5 or 10 or 100 people you may not know yet? I feel like that has been very, very useful. And in my career at J&J, when we used to onboarded executive, we will really give them a mission to find the Uber connectors, part of the onboarding that will connect them to other people. Second, identify as well almost how decisions are made, but really what is the trust ecosystem? You may not know and may not have the most senior leaders within your organization in your network, but decisions are made by people who are trusting others and getting insights to your peers or colleagues, for example. So try to understand the layer of that and understand what those people are doing. But I feel like It's navigating, understand the culture. Second, find the connectors, the connecting hubs. And third, understand decision making and how trust is built within those organizations.
I love that. And I think, like, again, very fundamental core to Unveiled's work. It is about understanding the decision-making process and who are those influencers, and exactly what you're talking about. It's not always the person with the most seniority, but who are they listening to in making decisions is also just as important to identify. Building on that, Lisa, what is the difference between playing politics and understanding power dynamics responsibly?
Yes. Politics and power dynamics. I always tend to always have a gut check if I'm in, as I go along. Politics is more self-serving, I feel. And then power dynamics is more essentially what we were just talking about, is the decision making and the decision-making framework and how people are wired to make decisions, what's important to them. There's a variety of personality studies out there based on a variety of different skills. If people are more data-driven, more visionary, we all run on a certain thread of thinking on how we make decisions. And I think power dynamics is just a recognition of who's in the room, what their responsibility is in that room, and who are the decision makers, and then how do they make decisions. I think politics and like playing politics, I want to be careful. Playing politics can be good and playing politics can be bad. When I say the good part of playing politics, it's really trying to understand the people in the room, what they're responsible for and how they make decisions. And that's, and understanding that is really critical and important to team success and your success in your career. I think when people are, I guess, when it's used more negatively, or it's not as, when you play politics and it's more self-serving, so it's more about you than the work, than the team, than the program, than the company, than the project, whatever the outcome is that you're responsible for, that you're trying to champion or pioneer. I believe when it becomes real self-serving and it becomes all about you is when it starts to get not cool. And I do think all of us, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm pretty sure so it's out there, it's pretty prevalent that we do know that there's a few people in companies that tend to err on playing politics more as a self-serving aid than it is around understanding power dynamics, so that way you can understand who you need to reach, how you need to reach them, and how you need to influence them.
I love that distinction. And yes, exactly to your point, I think politics generally has been associated, like, always with a negative connotation, but it is really important to understand how organizations who work, and exactly to your point, to be able to achieve the best outcomes for your teams, for your organizations, and for yourselves, like, speaking of career progression as well. So Bertrand, in our conversations, you have advocated for, like, paying it forward as a form of leadership. How has being a mentor in various communities actually helped your professional growth and visibility?
Yeah, I feel like what it does give you, not only is the right thing to do, because someone at some point did something that put you on that path. You benefited from either a guidance, a support, visible or invisible, for people who may have been in the room while you were not in the room. So I feel like by default, you have to pay it forward. And what it does also is, really, outside of group preparing next generation leaders, it does give you a level of insight and exposure to people who are thinking differently. I still remember mentoring someone who was very early in her career. She had studied science and she had a first position in government, and then she wanted to become a lawyer. In each of our interactions, while I was sharing a little bit my vision, I was learning really the highest level of agility in the thinking of early talent, in the way they consider their career trajectory. It's not one start with the same. My dad worked for his entire life for one company. That model is broken. In a short amount of time, that young talent showed me that, hey, I can do that, work in the city, but maybe go back to school, get a law degree, and then I'm gonna specialize myself in IP, and I felt like it was refreshing. So it's paid forward because it's the right thing for to do, but also getting a level of energy and insight that you don't get because generationally things are different. You tend to hang out with people sometimes for some generations, and here it does give you a level of understanding of how the world is different and how the next generations are thinking differently and making bold career moves, if I may say.
That's a great point. Along those lines, Lisa, you lead engineering at a major tech company like Oracle, but you also hold a leadership role with the American Heart Association. How does your outside leadership influence how you show up and manage teams at Oracle?
So I joined American Heart Advisory Board in October of 2024. I believe my work in volunteer in this nonprofit on my spare time and my personal time has afforded me more connections internally with like the human side of me. So, we're all here to work and our day jobs. And when people come across, and so I use LinkedIn, and sometimes there's different brochure material locally in the area. That's because we try to drive donorship and sponsorship, and I try to do some of that through Oracle as well and bring it into Oracle. But when people come across the thread of me being involved in American Heart, I noticed it has afforded me new relationships internally and maybe stronger relationships as well, because we're designed to have relationships professionally based on trust with each other, based on work engagements that we're doing together. And this allows me to share a different dimension of me at work or with people I work with. And it adds a human side to it. And I think that allows for stronger connections, and it allows for outside interests and commonalities that we may all have with each other, or some of us have with each other that we didn't really realize. And it makes it more fun if you can be connected to people in different ways beyond just the day-to-day work tactics, and it makes things nicer and happier and healthier. And that I've noticed that. And I've also made a point. I said, I wish I would have learned this years ago. It would have been great if I would have discovered this in my 20s when I was, starting out in my career, because, it could have opened different doors along the way as well.
Maybe one comment on what Lisa said. Would you say, Lisa, it's almost what makes her more human? I feel like people tend to be, okay, this is my credential, I've done this, I've done that. But at the core, this is what your passion is. That's the human piece in the human that's not going away. What's your thought on that?
I really try to bring a human side to a lot of things in working, because we're just always so, at work-wise, you're just so laser focused on getting to that next deliverable or hitting that next deadline. And I always say this, and I tell this to my kids, work is is also a family too. To some extent. And if I really wanted to keep track of it from an engineering standpoint, I probably spend more time with the people I work with than I do with my kids on a given week. And I think that, the human side of all of us allows us to connect with each other in different ways that makes our relationships stronger.
That's really a great point. This is for both of you. I was reading the other day, there's a recent study that revealed that trust in immediate managers is at one of its lowest points at 29%. The pace of change with everyone going through this transformation, AI could be contributing to it. How do you build trust with your peers and your teams?
Maybe just comment to add to your stat. I was also reading this Edelman report that is almost tracking trust within an organization. We interviewed at least more than 2,000 people. and it was kind of interesting to see you say, Sana, that trust is managers were in 29%, but if you look at institutions, governments, and others, trust is lower than ever in based on the survey data. So if you think of it's still low for the managers and the employers show up really with a greater score than government, businesses, institutions, and other things. So there is a trust deficit, if I may say, right now, almost globally and more acute in some nation. And I felt like to connect to what we're discussing and being human is being open and really authentic, vulnerable, and try to support pay it forward. So I feel like I've used those as recipe to build trust with my team because indeed we spend a lot of time with the people at work and we may not call them family because they are selected, if I may say, but they are really family and really just showing that level of authenticity, vulnerability, and making sure that you have that their well-being and their success is also part of your mission. I feel like it's been a great way to build trust with my teams and peers in organizations.
Trust, I think is well, I'm coming from a high tech industry, so I think trust right now is being redefined and everything's on edge with all the disruption of AI happening. I think trust is the first thing that people might not maintain in times of uncertainty, because trust typically means you feel like there's certainty happening and there's security. And I think when there's instability and insecurity, trust, it goes out the window. I guess knowing that we're in really uncertain times from a high tech standpoint. And so I do think trust is a big item right now that is being redefined or explored further with existing relationships in the industry. Trust is very important for me. It's very important to everyone. I do think sometimes we forget about it, and we have to be more intentional around trust and understand that there are two different types of people. There are people that decide to trust early and then see. And then there are people that you need to earn my trust, so I'm cautious until you get that. I think that, there's a spectrum of that, but I do think largely if you had to categorize and sort people, they fall into naturally either one of those. I tend to, and it's burned me, I tend to trust right off the bat until I shouldn't. But I think it's important for all of us to recognize that people earn and gain trust differently, whether it's right away or you have to earn it. And knowing who your audience is on that is important. When I feel like I want to earn someone's trust because they're not giving it to me for whatever reason right away, my biggest thing, and I'm probably too narrow-minded on this, that I'm not sure if it's 100% good. It serves me well more than it doesn't, but I'm really big on, I call it my say-do ratio. So what I say I'm gonna do, I end up doing it. So I think that's my really biggest kind of way I drive and how I try to earn trust from people, because I do think that if there's an agreement happening or somebody's expecting me to do something, or I'm acknowledging to somebody that I'm going to do something, I believe if I don't do it, how are they going to trust me? And so that's like, when it boils down, my say-do ratio is really important to me.
To your point, Lisa, I remember I was running a session for people managers in an organization, and one of them actually talked about this. We had brought in this new leader into the organization, and they talked about how much of a positive impact it had on them, because the leader in the first meeting, he explicitly said, my default is going to be to trust you. Trust your judgment until I shouldn't, until you give me a reason not to. People have different styles. I do have questions, but I'm seeing like we are starting to get audience questions, and I want to prioritize them. So we will shift over to that. Following on the trust theme, Alex, do you want to ask your question?
No, I can ask, no problem. Yeah, so I was just curious because obviously trusting in your manager or your leader is different from trusting the actual company itself. So I'm just kind of thinking of the job market right now, and a lot of professionals have built or have that trust that has been built with their leaders, but you could be terminated in a week. And that may not have anything to do with the leader. So it was less of a question and more of just kind of, I'm curious how the difference would look between trusting your manager, like that study that you were citing, versus trusting the company itself.
So, Alex, I think you're sharing a dimension of reality right now that I was speaking to earlier on. Like, trust is an interesting word right now in high tech, right? And I think you've probably more elegantly explained why I said that. I 100% agree. I do think trust has a variety of different I don't know, vectors in a professional sense. And there's one with the company, there's one with the leader. And sometimes those go together, sometimes they're maintained separately. And I think right now, with some of the AI theater and the renaissance of disruption, or whatever headline you want to attach to, I think there are different dimensions right now that we're just that are being realized on trust. And I, I would hope that any employee, if they're in a work environment and work condition, has trust with their leader. I recognize that trust with the company. I'm not even sure what that means and what that looks like. And even if I have trust with trust in the company, I trust the company that I work for, Oracle, in regards of, I trust where they're headed. I trust their values. I trust what they're going after. But in terms of the company caring about Lisa Hornschemeier, I don't trust that. I don't think that exists, but I do trust the healthy professional relationship I have with my leader, and understanding what I'm equipped to do, what I'm skilled to do, and their abilities to lead me in the work that I'm doing. So, but yeah, I think you call out that oddity that's existing right now, that's getting really exploited between company trust and employee manager trust. And I do think they're different, to your point.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that wonderful question. Origa, do you want to ask your question? Or I can ask for you. She is usually based out of New Zealand. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm on a low internet connection. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Great. I have so many questions, very inspiring chat, and I'm definitely going to connect with you online. I do a lot of board work and advisory work after 25 years in tech, so I'm really interested in this inflection moment of business models changing to more value-based systems, which, in all fairness, I could be overstepping here. I feel when you're in startup and you're in high growth, high tech, there is a trust model that's implicit, because you have to read each other's minds and you're working around the clock, and your family is your work, sadly. And I've also heard people say that work is the new church even. So people are really putting everything into what they've got in high tech. But there are a lot of old aging systems that need to reinvent themselves and don't have charity anymore or sponsorship models that work. And I just figured, with this amazing panel, I'd love to learn more about what those new models are, how to evolve companies that have been funded, forever, for 100 years, still are doing really great community work and charitable work, but have never been commercially minded and don't have the DNA. So I find myself advising a lot of these companies, and it's best to not reinvent wheels. So it's just curious about funding models for those inflection moments.
I don't have a lot of information. So Bertrand, I don't know if you're more skilled in this. So to be quite frank, I used to work for Microsoft. Now I work for Oracle. I was more involved in the pipeline of company donorship and sponsorship frameworks and all of that at Microsoft from an Oracle standpoint. So I'm kind of in the OCI division in Seattle, the high tech piece in the corporate kind of corporate entity of sponsorship and company donorship is on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. I haven't gotten that close to it. It's my goal, actually. Like if you were to, hopefully if you were to ask me this question, and maybe you should next year, I'll know a little bit more, because this year I'm trying to pioneer OCI into being a more direct sponsorship model with Oracle corporate on volunteer organizations, American Heart and Seattle and all of that. But right now I haven't linked the two. I'm just kind of personally pioneering it right now at the company. I'm not really tied into those larger donorship models or those value propositions. Microsoft, it was much more structured, and I was closer to it. I don't know, Bertrand, or do you have any skills or insights on that? This is kind of not an area of my expertise.
Yeah, maybe the only thing I would say in a way that I feel like companies, particularly involved in tech, will have to need to strengthen their reputation with the upcoming disruption related to technology. And I do see that potentially chargeable donation as a pathway to do that. And again, take it good or bad. You feel like if you want to do well, you know that you will create disruption, you will do it by giving to organizations that can really have a positive impact on people's lives. And I have a friend in that space I can connect you with, Origa, who is in France. It was working with companies to do that when there is social impact. They're trying to really mitigate that by really having targeted donations to key organizations. But I do feel like the channel that, hey, you're about to disrupt the world no matter what, try to still do good while disrupting the world could be a channel that could give you additional, let's say, bandwidth to capture donations from those organizations. That's yeah.
I think like one of the things is like as you're trying to move to a more commercial model, right? Like, so how do you tell your story differently, right? Like, so that's something that kind of keeping your target audience in mind. How are you positioning yourself in a way that they will care about? Like, especially if you're trying, if it's like a different set of audience with your kind of the more commercial mindset, right? Like, so I think it goes back to kind of a little bit of making sure that you have your story aligned with your target audience to get a better success rate. So we also have a question from Zara. Zara, are you on? Or do you want, I think you were having connectivity issues. Do you want to ask your question? What if the politics in your team is not good for other teams? And if you play along, it would be detrimental to other teams, but still beneficial for the organization overall. We'll appreciate some insights. I understand huge tech organizations are pretty political and can be bureaucratic. So would welcome both your insights.
I've been in this situation before. If I understand the question, it's postured as, you know, you're working inside a team and the team itself does not have a great culture of connection with other teams. And there's acknowledgement and awareness of that. However, the team itself is doing good work, which is why it's not a detriment to the organization. You know, this is where, I mean, understanding that I kind of stay tried and true to my own values and ethics. And that's never seemed to burn me at any point in my career. I don't think it's your job to take on changing adult behavior in people. I think, you know, hopefully though it's not toxic behavior, but I do think that you can be a role model or you could be a mentor, or you can continue being independent thinking and maintain your own culture of aptitude in the work that you do. And I would say to continue doing that, sometimes you're able to bridge gaps with other teams and you could actually make your team more successful by being a bridge of that cultural transformation of change. But in the end of the day, that could be taxing as well. I understand. We shouldn't be doing anything that's a detriment to us. It doesn't sound like that's what you're saying. You're just maybe not aligned culturally to the values that are being managed within your current team. And I tell my kids this, I tell myself this all the time, and I've never been burned on, stay tried and true to who you are, and do good work. And at some point, if that becomes complicated or difficult, then maybe it's time for change. If not, continue being who you are.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to add a little bit more color here. It's, being in Alliance's overlay role, driving revenue for the organization, and being asked to take over, and this is politics, huge politics, take over someone else's account, although they own the account. So at the end of the day, regardless of who drives the business will add, value to the company at the end of the day. But in the interim, it will topple the internal structure of different teams, and it will create a lot of conflict there. And the fact is that if your own team is not aligned on conflict, they don't care for conflict. They are more like of a mentality of grab and go. You're absolutely correct. Adult behaviors, you're not there to be their therapist or provide coaching to them, but you're still there. You want to work in a team, structure as well. So I was, what you said is it's spot on. And I saw, some of my colleagues ended up moving on. Because it was not adding value to them individually. They were bringing revenue for the organization at what cost? Internal turmoil, internal conflict. So that's also part of some politics that we deal with in our day-to-day lives. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that context, Zara. And Bertrand, I'm sure like you have also seen that from a people standpoint. I know I have, where, the culture catches up. In the short term, it could be like you're getting revenue and you're like hitting the numbers, but like you will see like people start leaving. That's where it's kind of when you still operate with like your values alignment, you are building that brand, and that's how people also find opportunities, going back to, moving beyond the org chart. So Bertrand, any thoughts around that?
And also you're building your reputation, right? And I used to send of the litmus test that when you have to deal with chaos in an organization, think of two things. First one, who will we invite for your 80th birthday? So are those people going to stick to be there during your 80th birthday? And then the kind of 0.1% mindset in a way that based on where you were born, the zip code is already position you to really kind of do well and kind of be on a call like the one we're having today. So I feel like you already won. And it doesn't mean that you remove your ambition, but you already won by being there. But use the litmus test for chaos management. Who would you invite on your 80th birthday?
I love that. So I have one closing question, but before that, I want to give the audience the chance to, if anyone else has a question they would like to ask before that.
I have one follow-up question for Lisa, because Lisa brought up some very phenomenal points on those, being a female leader, and I do want to bring gender in there as well. What's been your experience? Have you seen women take up more challenges when it comes to be in political environments, or they stay away from taking those challenges? And sometimes it's not like who gets the medal at the end of the day. It's just the nature of the beast. So what's been your experience?
I would say there are two things. One, and this one is, Sahana, I want to say that you had an Unveiled on this around women taking on and leading through crisis. Yes.
Glass cliff survival. Yes.
Yes. I would say I've seen this happen a lot. And this has happened to me. It seems so there's inclusion, it's not that there's not inclusion, but I've noticed that the women in maybe conversations will get the work that is the crisis work, or like the work nobody wants potentially. I have an opinion on that. I have gotten promoted and have gotten to different heights in my career by taking the work nobody wants. And so I don't know how I feel about sometimes reading headlines of like, that's, trying to pass judgment on work. Work is work. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all time away from our families and our personal life. So if you really want me to pick, I'd rather be with my family than doing work, but I'm here doing work. And so I think, just trying to create a non-emotional environment around work and taking work without judgment, and then maybe kicking butt at it, and then maybe asserting more of an opinion on what comes next. I've seen that work. I've gotten to different heights in my career because I've taken the job nobody was wanted to do. So I don't necessarily think that people that say like, you deserve all the cool jobs. I don't think I agree with that. Second, is as women, I think we trap ourselves into always feeling the pressure to say yes. And I am completely in admiration of my male colleagues that are just very savvy at how to maneuver conversations with saying no at times and doing that in a very elegant way. I feel like my instinct is always like, I better say yes. If I don't say yes, this is going to be the wrong answer. And so I'm constantly studying my male counterparts because I don't see a lot of that trauma, if you will, happening. And I do think that my instinct myself, I personally recognize it, is always like when someone's asking something of me, I'm already trying to figure out how I can say yes. And, that's good. But also at the same point in time is, you've got to maintain a little bit of control of what you've already said yes to at times. And so it can't always be yes. And I would say the yes and taking work that nobody wants are kind of like the two things that pop in my head on that one.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So this question is for both of you, and Bertrand, we'll start with you. So if the people here today, and also people who watch the replay, if they want to start building impact beyond their current org chart, what is one tangible step they should take this week, this month, to change their trajectory?
Yeah, practical, I would say do an inventory of what you're good at, what you know well, and how what you know well and you're good at can help someone else, and find an organization that can be that bridge.
Great. Nice. I love that. Lisa?
I don't want to follow that, because how do you top doing what you're good at? Like that is like the essence of what we all really should be doing on a regular basis. I want to capitalize on that with what Bertrand said. Growing up in my career, like I've read the books, and there seems to be a pendulum swinging on framing of thinking. And I don't know if everyone remembers in the early 2000s, it was all around, development opportunities and what your weakest link is, and how can you make yourself stronger because the weakest link holds you back, and how can you really focus on what your development opportunities are. And then the pendulum started swinging of like, hey, what about Strength Finders? And if you guys remember that book, Strength Finders, and capitalizing on your strengths. And kind of living through both regimes of thinking, of personal and professional development, I do want to underscore what Bertrand said. I do think it's really all about Strength Finders. I think at the end of the day, we all have a certain unique set of skills, and we all are unique in ourselves on how we apply those skills, how our head works, how we think about it. And I think we do our best work when we get to do work that we're really good at. And I think working beyond the org chart in terms of trying to find ways to master our skills and showcase those skills and maybe sit with doing what we're really good at, I think can take us pretty far.
I love that. And seriously, that was a Bertrand Shanti said, like that was a serious mic drop event that you did there. So again, thank you both so much for joining and for this conversation. I love always, like in these sessions, we are always candid. We want people to have some tangible takeaways that they can apply in their context. So really appreciate both of you sharing examples, sharing your insights, perspectives that we can all learn from. So thank you, both of you, for joining us today and for taking the time. Everyone, thank you so much for joining and for really kind of your engagement, your participation. Our next Fireside Chat is on June 18th. It's already on our website, unveiledbridgingthegap.org/events. And that's going to be leading beyond survival mode. And we have two leaders in the biotech space who are going to talk about it. And our guest is going to be Michelle Patel, who is in the COO role in Moderna. Look forward to that. Again, thank you both for your authenticity and candidness, and appreciate the time all of you took and for all your questions and engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great
Bye.
day.